Welcome, everyone, to a very special episode of the Theatre Thoughts podcast. It's actually quite good timing because this is NAIDOC week. So we are talking with a Palawa Playwright from Northeast Tasmania. They were a participant in the Ilbagiri Theatre Company's Black Rights program. They studied drama at the ANU and the State University of New York. They also received the 2021 Nick Enright Prize for Playwriting for his play Milk. And in 2020, won both the Griffin Award and the Rodney Seaborn Playwrights Award for the Gothic Revenge drama Way Back When. They are putting on their play Whitefella Yella Tree at the Griffin Theatre from the 12th of August to the 17th of September. Please welcome to the podcast, Dylan Den Berg. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Justin. That was quite a list of things. I'd never heard it all in one spot before, so thanks for sharing.
No, that's all right. I found as I've started, that's kind of like how I've started doing the most, the beginnings of my podcast, and all the artists and creatives are like, oh my God, wow, that's a lot of stuff when you look at it all in one.
Definitely. I'm surprised. I think you should write my bios from now. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. You're welcome. It's good. It's good to see the things that with the artists and the creatives that we have on the podcast and see what they've done. Because I think when you kind of look back on everything you do as one, you don't really recognize time flies, doesn't it? You don't really recognize how much you've done, and you've done a heck of a lot, and you're still doing a lot. So I guess where I want to start is introducing yourself to the listeners and kind of seeing who you are and what's your piece of theatre that you've got for yourself.
Yeah. First, though, to say a great point about not kind of taking stock of what we've done. I think as artists, we're always thinking about the next thing. So it's not very often you kind of get to think about what you've just done or what you've done over the last couple of years, particularly with COVID, I think, as well.
Yeah, exactly.
But yes, my name is Dylan Den Berg. I'm a Palawa Playwright, originally from the northeast of Tasmania with family connections to there and the Bass Strait Islands where my great-grandmother was born. But I've been living on Ngunnawal country, Canberra, for a long time now. Very grateful to create my work between here and Gadigal land as well. Really excited about this upcoming kind of piece of theatre with Griffin, Whitefella Yella Tree, but it is a culmination, I guess, of my writing work over the last couple of years. I'm fascinated by stories around Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander identities, Black identities, relationships with settlers, and so on. And so that's a real theme of my work. But I didn't start as a playwright, actually. That came later. I was an actor to start with, and I thought you had to be super smart to be a writer. I thought, I'm not Tom Stoppard. I'm not Joanna Murray Smith. I'm not Wesley. I can't do it. But then I soon realised that no, anyone can and should write. I think everyone's got a story to tell. So when I was acting, and I use the term loosely because I think my acting work kind of dried up, and I thought, what can I do next?
What's next?
What's going to happen? I thought, if no one's going to give me roles, I'll start writing for myself. And that's kind of where my first play, Milk, came from, which you mentioned earlier, which was kind of an exploration of my family history from the Bass Strait and from Tasmania.
Okay.
So that kind of kicked it off for me, really. And now I love writing. I love being in control. I love putting in weird stage directions and going, oh, that's a director's problem. So it's a power trip that's gone to my head now.
That's so good. That's so good. I like when you see that in plays. We went to what did we see recently? We saw Cleansed by Redline Productions, and I remember studying Sarah Kane in uni, but I'd never seen one perform, because when you read her stage directions, you're like, no way will that ever be.
It can't happen. Yeah.
I like that. I like seeing the playwrights go, it's a director's problem.
The most fun you can have as a writer. So.
Yeah. Excellent. So I guess if I were to summarize a couple of things you said, I guess what inspires you as a playwright is your background and your history and your identity. And I like especially what you said, or not especially, I hate when people do that, especially what you said about everyone has their own story to tell. And I think that's why a lot of actors become playwrights or turn to playwriting, because everyone has stories to tell. And I think the Australian theatre scene is so diverse, or it can be more diverse in what we're putting up on stage. Like I was talking with a couple of our writers recently. Right now in Sydney, there are, I think, 3 different performances, all with Asian representation. There's one at Sydney Theatre Company, Griffin, and over at Belvoir. And like that's a moment, I think, that a lot of people aren't realizing, because a lot of the works that we've seen are mostly led by, you know, white voices, I suppose.
Definitely. I think it's amazing and wonderful and needed that people from different sides of the fence are jumping in and writing. I'm talking about actors or people who are designers and shifting into writing and so on, because I think for a long time we've had this singular idea of what a playwright is: someone who's clever, as I said before, white, who, you know, is going to write about a dinner party. You know, and I don't mind a play about a dinner party. But
my God, you're so right. I've never thought about it before. They're all about dinner parties.
Yeah. No, I think it's Patricia Cornelius who once said that she would do something expletive if she ever had to sit through a dinner party play again, something along those lines. And I tend to agree. So I think it's this idea of what a playwright is shifting. And I think the state of our industry at the moment means that we all kind of have to try a hand at different things. And I think that's a wonderful thing. It's an exciting thing.
Well, let's talk about Whitefella Yella Tree then. So I'll give a bit of a background on the plot. So this is kind of verbatim off everything I found online. So it's a gripping and heartbreaking tale exploring how the development of queer Aboriginal identities was impacted due to British colonisers importing their ideas and their laws surrounding homosexuality. That in itself, I think I can honestly say, like, hand on heart, I've never seen anything like that done on stage. Like that kind of, those two sides of history and representation don't generally, well, not mesh, that's not the right word, but are performed, I suppose. So the story follows Nettie from the Mountain Mob and Ty from the River Mob, who meet under a lemon tree to exchange information about the movements of the Whitefellas. After a rough start, their fragile friendship fruits into a heady romance, and then soon Nettie's sister is taken by the Whitefellas and he joins them as a tracker in order to help find her. He absorbs their ideas and their customs, bringing them back to his meetings with Ty and causing their relationship to fracture. Ooh, juicy. Very juicy.
Again, a lovely snappy sum up. I'm impressed. So thanks for sharing.
No, it's all right. I was like, as I was reading, I was like, I hope this isn't spoilery, but it's good to see like the over encompassing thing of it. So where did this story come from?
That's a great question. And I'll give you a less succinct answer, probably be a bit rambling, but I had this idea for the play a few years ago. I generally, because I'm lazy, I have an idea and it takes me years before I actually do anything about it. But I had this idea for a play set under a lemon tree. I didn't really know what it was going to be about or what it would be, but this idea of a romance, a love story between two boys on the cusp of manhood. And it was around that time that I saw a tweet by Anthony Mundine, basically saying that queerness didn't exist in First Nations cultures, that it was forbidden. And I just thought, wow, oh Dal, that's no idea.
Oh, Dal. Anthony.
Oh, Anthony, what are you thinking? And I was, I thought that, but I was also really concerned and stressed too, because, you know, how false and disorienting to read that your identity is at odds with your culture, and how destabilizing to see non-First Nations people cling on to comments like that because Anthony is an Aboriginal man, and you know, assume that they carry some weight because of his heritage and background.
Yeah,
because it's just not true. And so I wanted to write a play that kind of spoke back to history and filled in those gaps, because the history we have of queer blackness is through a white lens, and therefore it's generally being erased. And I thought I wanted to kind of, you know, have some fun and fill those gaps again, and write something a bit camp, a bit lovey-dovey, but also that actually engaged with this idea of colonization, erasing those identities as well.
Yeah, no, I think it's interesting because it's like bringing a modern more modern, I should say, story that a lot of people would connect with, but setting it in a time where a lot of that would be forbidden and taboo, I suppose.
Definitely. I love to play with time in my work. Again, because I'm lazy and I don't want to be, specific to any period. I want to throw it all together. But I thought, I wanted to present a modern relationship in a historical context and kind of go, this was what we lost essentially. Yeah, I'm going to stop rambling, but yes.
No, it's fine. It's good. Well, you've got two amazing actors performing in it as well. So you have Birrapi Warrapi Man and Helpman Award winner Guy Simon, as well as Wiradjuri man Callan Purcell, who I actually saw in Hamilton. I think I saw him perform as Hamilton the time I went. He was very, very good.
I'm so stoked with the cast. Those two gents are incredible, and working with them, had the opportunity to kind of have a read with them, and Guy has kind of been involved in this for a while now, and it's wonderful just to see and hear a love story come out of their mouths. It's just really exciting. I can't wait to share it with everyone.
And is this the first time it's been staged, or was it staged previously?
No, this is the first time.
It's the first time.
So we've been developing it. It was developed through Griffin's studio program. So I was a studio artist last year, and so we kind of had a bit of time to work through it and try and iron out some of the kinks, I guess.
Yeah.
Get it to a point where it's ready to go up into rehearsal in about a week, which is terrifying.
It is terrifying, isn't it? Well, how do you do that? How do you iron out the kinks in that? What do you find? Well, I mean, I guess, how do you sit there and go, that doesn't work, scrap it, or that's gold and we'll keep it?
I'm really indecisive, so I rely on other people. I'm unashamedly a plagiarizer. If someone has a good idea, I'll whack it in, and put my name to it. So, look, I think it's really difficult. Although I do think it's clear when you hear something out loud. You can kind of, the cadence is off, or that you hear the plot holes, or someone has a question that has you go, oh, that's not clear enough, I need to fix it up. So in the collaboration, I think it becomes clear what needs to be fixed. And as for the bits that work, I mean, I don't think a play's ever finished, so I'm going to agonize over this for the next 70 years, and keep working on it. But for me, I find that if I'm vaguely happy with something, then I'm happy to leave it and move on. But we'll see what happens in rehearsal. I'm sure I'll be slashing and cutting and changing and all of that.
Yeah, no, I think that's interesting that it's constantly evolving. And you're right, like, plays are never, like, even if you put it in print and you slap them like there, that's it. People are still going to change it to their own meaning when it's eventually performed by other people, I suppose. I guess that's the nature of theatre, really.
Exactly. I think if theatre was something that was fixed, I wouldn't want to do it.
Yeah, there's no point. No point.
Exactly.
Well, playwriting itself, it can be a really lonely process. I know, like, doing this podcast, like, I get to talk to amazing artists like yourself, but sometimes even I sit here going like, oh, it's a bit of a lonely process. So how do you keep yourself involved with other writers and overcome, like, those obstacles, I suppose?
I kind of enjoy the loneliness.
Yeah.
There's nothing like sitting at your desk with a glass of Pinot and staring at a blank screen.
That is true. That is true.
With only your own thoughts to torment you. No, in saying that, I do think it is important to convene, not just with writers, but other artists as well. I have a lot of friends who are incredible writers, but also friends who work in other areas or are completely removed from the arts, and I actually find it really important to talk about my ideas with family, with those mates, with artists, just to kind of get a sense of, is it going to land with different audiences? I don't know, some writers think you should kind of discard this idea of writing for an audience and so on, but I do think it's part of that process. I think you kind of I don't want to write something that nobody wants to bloody come and see.
That's true. That is true.
And you never know where a great perspective or idea or thought or provocation is going to come from. Sometimes it's just from talking to your nan. She's like, "Oh, have you thought about this?" And it's like, "Oh, okay, nan. No, you're right." So, I think it's important.
Jumping on that, I suppose, and talking about collaborating with other people, what I've been trying to get a lot of advice recently from artists and creatives that we have on the podcast, more for young up-and-coming creatives to inspire them. So I guess, what advice would you give for somebody like yourself who is doing acting and it's not really for them, and they go, you know what, I feel like I want to tell my story? I guess, what advice would you give them to journey into that path?
Oh God, I feel like I'm the wrong person to ask because I just advocate for a lot of drinking. But I would say, just to start, don't wait for anyone to give you permission, because they're probably not going to. I think when I first started writing, I would just lounge around I was living in Sydney at the time, lounge about waiting for someone to discover me through my lounge room window. And I was like, this isn't going to happen.
Hello.
So excuse me, I've got 5 pages of a script here. So he just started writing, and I can't remember where I read it, but I read something once about how when you first start something, your taste is more advanced than your actual skill and ability. And I think that's very true. I don't think anyone's a natural at much. So when I first started writing, I was kind of cringing a bit and going, this isn't what I want it to be. This isn't the magnum opus I thought I was going to be creating. But you've just got to kind of push through those feelings of wanting to censor yourself and stop because it's not good enough, and just keep working at it. However many 1,000 hours you're supposed to do at something, start working towards that. And I would also say that when I started writing, I was heavily influenced by certain writers, and I tried to imitate their style. And I think that's quite common for people who are first starting out in writing. And it took me a while to shake. And I think the sooner you can shake it and just write like you, I think that your work will be better. You'll start to develop your own style, and your craft will improve.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I think, just to quote Nike, just do it. You just got to do it. No, I think that's really, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I mean, when you go into a new element of theatre that you're not like familiar with, or you're like umming and ahhing about, it can be a little bit foreboding, I suppose, a little bit like sickly to go, oh, I don't know if I'm quite cut out for this.
Yeah, definitely. I think, just what's the word? Just like banish your inner critic.
Yeah.
Kind of just, don't listen to them. And banish the critics who do exist and will come at you in real life too, because I think that some people don't approach new artists with the kindness and the nurturing kind of approach that they need and deserve. But that doesn't mean that you don't have a story to tell. I guess that's all I would say.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's really good. Great insight. Do you have, I know this is a pretty big question, do you have anything else like in the brain that's like, oh, I really want to do this? Or is there like a passion story that you feel you might want to put on paper later on?
Oh, that is a big question. I'm fascinated by the climate at the moment, I think. Fascinated, concerned, worried, all of those things, like everyone, I think, in the world. And wanting to think about a story that doesn't just report on the situation we're in, because we all know it's shit, but actually kind of offers something in terms of like a way forward and so on. But I'm not a scientist. I can't help anybody.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I've cut out my little recycling. Like, I'm doing my recycling, not using plastic. I'm doing my part. But
exactly.
It's also
I've got a worm
thing.
farm. Yeah, I've got all these things. So I would like to write something in the climate space. And I've got a few ideas and a few projects happening that are touching on it. But I think it's something that's, in that wanky way, bubbling away, and I need to think about, how I'm going to wrangle it and how it's going to come out.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Dylan, thank you so much for giving us your insight on Whitefella Yella Tree. I'm really quite interested to see this one. When I was reading about it, like I said before, like I was like, this is an interesting story that you don't generally get to see. So I think everyone should get along to go and see this at the Griffin Theatre. I'm pretty sure I've got the dates right, but it's the 12th of August to the 17th of September. So you're starting rehearsals soon. So all the best with your rehearsals. I hope you find things to keep, and then you also find things that aren't quite working and just cut them out.
Thanks so much, Justin. I look forward to seeing you and hopefully lots of you there.
No worries. Well,
you.
You can get tickets at griffintheatre.com.au. Thanks again, Dylan, so much for joining us, and all the best.
Thank you.